Portia Berry-Kilby joins us, political commentator and contributor to Young Voices UK. Good morning, Portia.
Morning, Callum. Thanks for having me on.
Oh, it's a pleasure. Thanks for being here. If the police are not the thought police, who do we need to be the thought police?
Well, I should hope in a functioning society we can kind of help one another, just be civil and not actually have to police people's thoughts, provided it's not leading to some egregious action. Then you should be allowed to disagree with others and voice some maybe slightly uncomfortable views, but at least civilly and without encroaching on people's sense of security and peace.
In terms of what Andy Cook has had to say, he says, we're not the thought police, we follow legislation and we follow the law, simple as that. What will be the role of the police in future, though, if laws governing what we can say online, for example, are strengthened? If that happens, surely at some stage the police will become the thought police.
Well, that's a very good point, and it kind of shows the tension at play. But at the moment, the police have plenty on that already with tackling just all real crimes. You know, if it be burglary, sexual offences, these have record low numbers of crimes resulting in a charge at the present time, and it's a distraction if police then have to get called into things which turn out to be non-hate crimes after all, and it kind of muddies the water, and it does make you think what are the police doing? Are they there to kind of be a teacher to petty children who can't actually act in a responsible and civil manner, or are they actually there to make people feel safe and to catch people who have committed a crime?
It's interesting about the non-crime hate incidents. 25,000 of them recorded annually by police. Judges warning that those risk interfering with people's right to express their opinions. I suppose with all of this, what I often consider is whether this is a new thing. You know, people have always had opinions. People have always expressed opinions. And perhaps the defining change is the fact that people express these opinions more loudly and proudly online. And that's what kind of puts this issue in the real spotlight and becomes the focal point.
I think to some extent, but I think it's also by being able to express it so loudly and proudly online, you do get into your own little mini echo chambers. For better or for worse, you can find like-minded people, but it does also insulate you against a greater diversity of thought. So then when you see something which goes against what you hold to be true and good, there is perhaps a greater offence taken with this. So then you end up getting the police involved more readily than one might have done, say, 20 years ago, had you had the same thing just in a public sphere, because you're not quite so comfortable with hearing such a conflicting viewpoint. I think that's the main worry, and it just seems to be blown out of proportion when you can so readily point to it online and think, hang on a minute, this is outrageous, why is this person saying this? When actually, at the end of the day, people just aren't well equipped enough to deal with a differing point of opinion.
Let's go on to another story in the Times this morning. A charity promoting diversity in universities has published reports suggesting moving away from final exams and breaking the traditional cycle of written assignments. These are papers published by Advance HE. And they say that universities that switch to at-home exams or essay tasks during the pandemic should consider keeping them, rather than returning to traditional exams. Now, GCSEs get underway today in England, exams underway across the rest of the country, various points from around now, study leave beginning across Scotland, Wales, Northern Ireland. I hated exams, absolutely detested them. I was very fortunate that I could do them, but I hated them. And this is actually follows really interesting week last week for the Times Education Commission and indeed Summit, where there was a general, I suppose, disparaging take really on the usefulness of exams. So this following hot on the heels of that. I just wonder if there's growing consensus here, Portia, that exams are old-fashioned and no longer fit for purpose, actually.
I think in some select schools of thought there is, and I think that's somewhat inevitable when in this day and age we have the internet, we have a lot of information at our fingertips, and in many jobs you will have all of the points you need in front of you and you just need to synthesize it in a coherent and eloquent manner. But at the same time, to be moving towards that there's always going to be a negative side to things, and there is something to be said for someone who can show in an exam that they don't need the information right in front of them. They have a good memory, they can perform under pressure, as in some jobs you need to do that. So I think there has to be a balance, and I think to move away for the name of, say, inclusion, or for any other kind of vague concept, always poses a risk, because at the end of the day, exams aren't meant to be inclusive. They are awful, yes, but that's the whole point. That it's meant to set people apart, and it's also meant to show that there is a variety of abilities out there, and not everyone, unfortunately, can get full marks all the while.
Interesting points, actually. Portia, really good to speak to you. Thank you very much. Thanks for your time.
Thanks, Callum.
That's Portia Berry-Kilby, political commentator and contributor to Young Voices UK.